Is kitefoiling dying? Every year I see fewer kitefoilers out on the water, and as someone who's recently fallen in love with the sport, I want to understand what's going on. So to get to the bottom of it, I'm going to sit down here in my sandy van in San Diego and interview some experts in the sport. So what is it you love about kitefoiling?
Good feeling of just floating. It's another dimension that you have to control, so there's a lot of stability needed. It's very technical, but that makes it so challenging and makes it so fun.
So who is your favorite kitefoil rider?
I'm a really big fan of Fred Hope because he rides strapless as well, and the stuff that he does, it's just super flowy, and he has some serious air game, even strapless, where I was like, wow, okay, landing seated, for instance, no chance for me.
Fred, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks for having me on here.
What are two of your favorite tricks that you like to do?
Yeah, there's one that's called a twirly whirly, and then that turned into a tornado. And a twirly whirly is basically you do a tack and you do an extra 360 spin through the tack, and then you come out riding heel side the new direction. And then the tornado is like the next step up, and that's two and a half spins through the tack. Very tricky. I don't land that one very much, but it's got kind of a funny name, so that one's pretty fun to do. And then in terms of jumping and leaving the water, there's one called a Holy Grail, where I basically jump up, I put my hand on the back of the board and lift it up into the air, and then kind of cup it underneath my feet and try to land with the foil without touching down on the board. And then that one's kind of morphed into one that I call, I think it's the Pizza Boy, where I do the same thing, but then I spin it in the air with the 360 and then catch and finish the back roll. But yeah, it's pretty fun, for sure. When you land them, they feel really good.
It's kind of the silence. Like if you ride a twin tip, you have all the water splashing all the time, and it's loud and noisy. Once you get into kitefoiling, you suddenly have a steadiness and elegance.
One of the best things about kitefoiling is that you don't need much wind to have an amazing session. Even here in San Diego, where the wind is kind of shitty, kitefoiling delivers epic sessions. And with the van, I've got the perfect setup to make the most out of any spot. I can get some work done while I'm waiting for the wind to pick up, and then I can hit the water when the wind is strongest.
14 knots on a foil is a blast. If it's gusty conditions, it doesn't matter because the foil will take you through it. And yeah, that just opens up a lot of spots that usually are not great, and a lot of wind conditions that are usually not great.
Why do you think some people stop kitefoiling?
I'm not sure. Maybe they got bored with it. I notice that for myself, I'm very tempted to try new things because at some point you have your progression curve, right? In the beginning, you learn something and it's super steep, your progression curve. You just learn. And at one point it starts flattening out. And then it's all about spending more time on the water. And then you can actually make that it continues rising a little bit. And this is one of the main reasons why I was at one point done with big air twin tip riding, because I flattened out. I actually felt less comfortable on the water than I used to because I didn't spend enough time on the water. And I think the same goes for kitefoiling. At some point you need to put your time into it to learn new things.
You do hit a limit at some point where you really have to start crashing, and I think that a lot of people in the industry or in the sport don't really like crashing. So they kind of, once they break through that, then it actually becomes fun again, because I love crashing. As much as people hate crashing, every time I crash I get kind of excited, because then each time I can kind of figure out what I did wrong, and it's kind of like a little puzzle on how to get everything just perfect to land just at the right angle every time.
I think that's one of the biggest shames, because in my experience of learning sports like big air, like when you reach that point where you plateau, like that's where the fun really begins. Like that's where you have to like devote yourself and you get immersed, and it's, yes, it's challenging, but it's so much more rewarding because of how much work you had to put in to get that thing.
Yeah, definitely. I know that feeling, but also we have the time. Like it's our job to be on the water, and we spend so much time on the water, so then you see that progression. But I think for most people, the weekend warriors that are dependent on a good forecast even in the weekend, at one point you're just gonna mow the lawn left, right, and it's hard to actually do something new, unfortunately.
Just a little moment to appreciate how sick that is. Like when I'm going foiling in Oman, I'm like, this is my work. Like, what? Oh, it's amazing.
This is my work. I need to try to get progression, and I can write it down as work hours.
And what are your favorite tricks to do on the foil, if you had to name a couple for me?
I think the around the world is one of my favorites for sure. It's just defying the wind window and sending your kite full circle around. That's always a cool one. And yeah, like a toe side tack. Like, it's so simple, but it just feels amazing if you can really like lean into it and get low with arch back. Like, those are tricks I really enjoy doing, and I love repeating those. The most fun kite sessions for me, or kite foiling sessions, are setting a box of 50 square meters and just stay in the box. Do turn after turn, linking them all up, jibes, downloop jibes, tags, roll tags, but also, I don't even know how you call it, but like a double turn that I've been doing a lot lately, or around the world. You can play around so much, and I write a lot with music, so I've been using, don't have them here now, but like these things from Shocks. They have the Open Swim now, which are MP3 players and Bluetooth, and I just write with that, and I start like jibing and tacking, not exactly on the beat, but definitely getting inspired by the music, and you get in a flow. It's amazing. It's really fun.
Awesome, man. And are you in a van right now?
Yeah, almost every summer actually.
And did you guys build out your van on your own?
Yeah, so I started with my van, I think like 5 years ago that I bought it and kitted it out. And then we went to Ireland. It was fall, late fall, so it was freezing. I did not have a heater. And over there I learned like, okay, you need a heater. Running water is quite nice.
Building a custom van is hard work and takes loads of time. If you want to skip out on all the headaches, then consider getting one from Sandy Vans. My friends Alan and Evan are two kite surfers behind the business. They build custom vans for kiters and adventurers like you. They also rent vans if you happen to be traveling to San Diego area in the near future. Check out their website for more details on builds, products, and rentals. And thank you so much to the guys for hooking me up on this trip.
So where do kitefoilers go when they stop kitefoiling? Would you say that it is growing, stagnating, or regressing?
Yeah, I definitely think that kitefoiling is a little bit regressing at the moment from the market that it once was, because that foil market needs to be shared now with wing foiling as well.
Now listen, in order for kitefoiling to have a decent future, not only do existing kitefoilers need to stick around, but we need to get new kitefoilers into the game. Now there are some things about kitefoiling that make it less accessible than other wind and water sports like wing foiling.
You have to be an experienced kite surfer to learn kitefoiling, you know what I mean? So there's a bigger barrier to get into it, whilst wing foiling is way more accessible. Like I can put any friend who has never done any water sports, I can just give him a 130 liter board, give him a wing, and make him practice on the water, because there's no barrier. It's super easy, it's safe. You don't have to learn how to handle that kite and all the 100-meter lines flying around, all the safety measures you have to take.
But yeah, I think that the big thing with winging is the access is really easy. You don't need to launch your kite, so you don't need a big beach, and then you can really relax in the water. And then riding swell, you can't ever really shut the kite off and just ride the foil on the swell, and that's kind of a cool feeling that you get with winging.
And if you're winging, you can just flag out the wing, grab it at the front handle, and cruise waves as long as you want without any restrictions. You can go any direction, you can go upwind, you can go downwind, you just have to hardly take care about the wing. And that's pretty much, I'd say, what caught me about it.
If you're a kiter, of course, it's more interesting to go kitefoiling, but the spots, wing foiling opens up more spots. And then I'm not talking about your perfect nice beaches, it's the places where you don't have a perfect nice beach. And around the world, there's actually a lot of places where water accessibility is very limited, the beaches are small, It's hard to launch a kite, it's super gusty. And especially for those places, I think that wing foiling is easier because your lines can't slack and your kite can't drag you into the bush. Like, you hold the wing, you access the water, and you do your thing. A lot of lakes in Europe, you're not allowed to kite, but you're allowed to wing foil. So there, the wing foiling is more accessible in my opinion because it is slightly less dangerous in those conditions.
So I kind of decide my discipline depending on the wind. I travel a lot, and so I generally will kite foil in the Caribbean and a little bit in Baja, where it's kind of lighter winds. And then in higher winds, I'll actually twin tip a lot and wing in gusty conditions. I think that a lot of the kite foilers have moved to winging, which you go on the water here in the gorge and there's definitely a lot more wingers. But then on light wind days, there's a lot of kite foilers that still come out of the woodwork. Like, those wingers want to go kite foiling when it's light wind. They don't want to go ride in flat water winging, like I said before. So I'd say that I have seen quite a bit of people go into winging, and then once they realize that they only want to wing in a certain wind condition, same way where I only go winging when it's gusty, they, in light winds, will actually come back and go kite foiling, just because they have more power, more speed. They can kind of work on other maneuvers that will also help when they're winging. At some point, a lot of these wingers that have kite experience, I think, are going to start to want to ride like the kite foilers that they see next to them.
Who knows what the future holds for kite foiling or even foiling in general? The space is changing so rapidly that brands, retailers, and even consumers are struggling to keep up. But one thing is for sure, the future of foiling is looking exciting. And guys, kite foiling is absolutely incredible. I really want to encourage everyone watching this video to get into it. I'm confident you'll love it. Now guys, I made another video for you and you can watch that one over here and you can subscribe over here. If you got anything to say, hit me up in the comments. Muchos besos and adios.